Dr. Rick with an unboxing for Perfect Keto. Perfect Keto is beta hydroxybutyrate in salt form. So I'll explain that in a second. In fact, if you had seen my video prior on unboxing of MCT oil powder, I think I explained to you how it might help you get into ketosis, or at least have a little bit of a sugary taste in the morning or a sweet taste in the morning without starting an insulin response. Same thing with this. So I am not I'm not practicing ketosis, but I am now currently doing this thing. I'm on a fasting mimicking diet, and with that, I really think this puts you at the 5th day into a ketosis, and I'll put a link to that too. I'm doing it with a bunch of folks on Facebook. I did it originally with Pat to support Pat, one of my friends and patients. But I tell you, the first time I did it, well, I'll talk more about that on one of my tutorials. I probably shouldn't interfere with this unboxing. So, using ketone salts will help the body attain a level of ketosis. So it did help, and I did do a blood test before I went into the fasting mimicking diet last time. I did it last month. You do it once a month for 3 months. But I did it last month, and after I was finished with the 5 days, I checked my blood ketone levels in the morning of the 6th day, and I was at 1.3, I believe. That's pretty decent. Starvation can get you at about 0.8 to 1. Exercise can get you there. Well, actually, exercise will get you to 0.8 to 1, maybe to 2 at the most. Starvation will push you into the 3s, but at its price that you're going to be starving, which is not good. But sometimes if you do a good nutritional balanced diet and refrain from eating crap, mostly carbohydrates, this will help you attain that level of ketosis where you aren't hungry, where your insulin is actually going down, and when the insulin goes down, growth hormone can spike up, considering that all other things should be good, like exercise, proper sleep. So when growth hormone goes up, muscles respond great. And please watch my video on the Prolon. I have one coming up on my experience with it because I am having muscle responsiveness like I've never had since my 20s. Anyway, so this is the Perfect Keto. There are a lot of companies that make ketone salts in capsule form. There are also companies that make ketone salts in powder form. Now you have to be aware that you got to read the back of the nutrition panel, because they don't always say, here's one capsule, so it's not that big, so it's pretty decent. That's the thing. And then there's the, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, that is the label. So on the label it has a few tidbits of information that I read already. It doesn't exactly give you how many, what kind of ketone total you have. It has measurements, but it doesn't have whether it's D or L isomer. So you don't have to search for all these acronyms or these letters, but D and L isomer isomers are basically how you can make a compound and can form one or the other. And usually the D is the one that's available, but the L is the cheapie. They'll make a batch that has both, but only good companies will actually have the D part. So the more D you have, the more bioavailable it is, the more an effect it will have. Now, I like the ketone salts because they do get you to a little bit of ketosis. What would be awesome would be taking ketone esters. That's liquid, but I've heard that tastes like gasoline. I've seen videos on YouTube where guys would do a ketone ester swig, and they check their ketone levels, and they go to 7 within about 10 minutes, and that's crazy. So here's the benefit. When you're in ketosis, whether it's starvation, exercise, adapted ketosis, nutritional ketosis, your body has a preference to burn fat instead of burning carbohydrate. Most of us will burn carbohydrate. I had a guy that came in today, said he was training real hard with his Lifetime Fitness trainer. And he's on a intermittent fasting. And then the trainer said, you should eat breakfast before you exercise. And I told him, in a general sense, you don't have to, but because I work out fasted all the time. And I know a lot of other athletes that work out fasted, and we don't crash. Now, if you try for the first time, you're going to hit the wall probably, because your body and mind are used to digesting and using the fuel glucose. When you can switch from glucose to fat immediately, then you won't have any problems with hitting the wall. When you're stuck on glucose and you've never tasted fat before, or usually don't do high fat diets, it's going to be tough to get the body to recognize the fat and start using that as a fuel source. So that's why doing the ketone salts maybe a week before this fasting mimicking diet thing, that's my approach. Not necessary, and it might destroy the effect that Walter Longo had with his fasting mimicking diet. I don't know, but I'll tell you, I did this last time. As I mentioned, I have muscle responsiveness that I've not seen since my 20s. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, check out my picture for shoulders, I think it was. I took a picture, I was doing a crow pose. It was a crow pose, sorry. On my Herbal 411 highlight. And the striations on my shoulders I haven't seen since I was bodybuilding, and that was 1982. So I think there's something to be said that when you do fasting mimicking as a jump start, it would be helpful. Again, this is not a fasting mimicking diet video, but that's tough. 5 days is tough as hell. I'm on my 4th day. I didn't have time to eat all day. Now I have a whole bunch of powdered food that I have to eat and take in. So I guess good for me, but I might have destroyed the plan. However, I think this will initiate the ketosis, so it's not so hard to drive into the 5 days. So what's hard in driving into any kind of diet is when you don't get to eat. Your body, again, your fuel source is going to stay full as far as glycogen and carbohydrate. But when you don't get to eat, you'll burn up a lot of that, and then your low fuel light will come on. And if you continue not to eat, even if you have these around, or you have a whole bunch of fat on this side, the mechanism won't switch over, the engine won't switch over to eating fat. It'll still stay over here. It'll just tell the brain, hey, what's up? There's no fuel. Start hunting. And that's when you get hungry and angry, because the body has to go searching around for fuel, and it's going to start making the poor choices. The fuel that's most urgently attained is going to be candy or carbohydrates or bread, and that's not healthy. But that's what happens when you let your hormones run out of control and you run out of fuel. If you can slowly, every once in a while, get into ketosis and come back, get into ketosis and come back. When it comes time to go into this semi-starvation mode and the 5-day fasting diet, or the fasting mimicking diet, 5-day, is 1,000 calories on the first day and 750 on the 2nd to the 5th day. So that's pretty tight. That's like half to a third of what anybody eats. So when you kind of have trained your body to go into a little bit of starvation and ketosis with this, I usually do 2 capsules 2 to 3 times a day. Then suddenly you're going to be, when you run out of fuel and the fuel light comes on saying no fuel, it'll easily go into this and you won't have that withdrawal. Unfortunately, I started having withdrawal by the 3rd day, and man, yesterday was really tough. I couldn't sleep, had headaches. It was very, very cold, like last time. I noticed that the 3rd day of the fasting mimicking diet, I started getting cold and I had to put blankets on. But I think that's because my thyroid was starting to wind down. In fact, I did thyroid blood tests. I can't post them, I don't have them, but I will post experimental results at the end of my 3 months. My thyroid was really going into shutdown by the 6th day, which is, I think, what is expected. White blood cell count was down, thyroid was down. That's metabolism slowing down. And then the beauty is on the 6th day, when you start eating food, the stem cells blossom, and then you have all this fixing, and that's what I think is going on with these things. With this, my muscles, brain's working great, my tolerance to stress is better. So anyway, I still would say that using capsules like Perfect Keto would be helpful. It did help me, I think, get into my fasting. And here's the other side effect too. You have to know that when you take the salts in powder form, they can upset your stomach. So if you were a IBS sufferer, you can turn on your IBS. You have to be careful. That's why I like the capsules versus the powder. There are some companies that make very gentle powders, some companies that make nasty powders. So be careful. If you can do this is a little more expensive, unfortunately, but there was a 4th of July sale, so I bought 4 of them. So I'm set until October. Again, the objective 2 is if you can get to 6 is the magic number as far as trying to find a dose, but the problem, you won't be able to find too many other places that have the breakdown specifically of ketones. So it'll tell you about beta hydroxybutyrate, and that's what the salt is, but it doesn't really define how much beta hydroxybutyrate is going to equal a ketone. You know what I mean? So that could be a problem, but don't worry about it. I would just say this as a product is pretty decent. You don't have to worry about the exact numbers. I might be messing up the exact dosage, but the idea is that if you can force your body to go into ketosis every once in a while, not only just the 5 days that you're starving, but also maybe beforehand with this, maybe a little bit with exercise, maybe a little bit with cutting back and intermittent fasting. Then when it comes time that you run out of fuel, your body can easily switch over with no problem. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an eye-opener as far as what happens during starvation, how ketosis can affect your appetite, because when you're in ketosis properly, I'd say ketone levels or beta hydroxybutyrate levels of about 4 or 5, then you're not hungry anymore, and you're able to still problem solve. You're not hungry. Muscles can continue on and exercise. And the other thing is, when you are in ketosis, you will start taking fuel out of your visceral fat. This is where the battery is, and you'll start burning your fuel up here. We always just put the fuel in, especially with carbohydrate diets, high carbohydrate diets. Now I'm a vegan, so I do eat high carbohydrates, but I also mix them up. And I have a lot of veggies. I don't just eat juices. I have a lot of protein. So vegetarians usually do a lot of carbohydrates, but and I still a vegan, but now I'm a vegan, intermittent faster, doing 5-day fasting mimicking diet every once in a while. In ketosis. Who knows? It's not that I'm narrowing it down, I'm fine-tuning it. And the data isn't just changing and throwing out the old stuff. The data is accumulating to, for those of you who say, it's always changing, it's always evolving. Science is always evolving, but it's evolving to fine-tune. So I'm not saying veganism is bad, I'm not saying ketosis is bad, I'm not saying paleo is bad. I think they're all useful, but in the end, you have to take the information, the data that's extracted from that population or that generation that did that kind of routine, and see how you can prepare you for diseases of the age. So as you hit 50, there's diseases. As you hit 40, there's diseases. When you hit 70, there's certain diseases. If you're prepared, and you usually have to prepare with exercise, proper dieting, proper sleep, love. If you're prepared, you'll be able to get past that decade without a problem. If you're unprepared, you will hit the wall with multiple diseases, see me or one of my colleagues in the office, and be given a whole bunch of medicines and surgical procedures and just be totally unhappy. So start paying for it forward now with all this knowledge. Don't be frustrated. It is always changing, but if you need somebody to interpret your data for you, your knowledge, you go to one of us. Well, not all of us are good, but go to one of us and we should be able to guide you in the right direction. Otherwise, again, Perfect Keto, pretty decent. Consider it. You should always do your blood test beforehand. If you're going to try this, I would do beta hydroxybutyrate levels, insulin levels, hemoglobin A1C, lipid levels, and maybe a SED rate and a CBC. Don't forget vitamin D, B12, iron, and do them before, in the morning, when you usually wake up, before you start on this project, and maybe challenge yourself and do it after, if it's paid for. Otherwise, thanks for listening up until now. If you have any questions, put them down below. If you have any comments, put them down below. If you didn't like it, click off. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next unboxing.